Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into a pretty intense analysis. It's one that claims the world is teetering right on the edge of a major war, and Iran is square in the middle of it all.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to start with how things got so tense, then look at America's show of force and Iran's, well, pretty clever response. After that, we'll see how other big players get involved, and then really get into the domestic politics that might be driving this whole thing, which leads to one heck of a final choice.
All right, first up, the brink of war. The analysis we're looking at kicks off with a bombshell, really. It says the US and Israel are basically ready to go to launch a military strike against Iran at a moment's notice. They're just waiting for some kind of trigger event, some excuse to pull the trigger.
But then, right out of the gate, we get a curveball. Just as everyone's eyes are locked on Iran, a really senior Israeli intelligence official says something unexpected. He points at Turkey and calls them a strategic threat. I mean, what does that tell you? It's a huge sign that this geopolitical chessboard is way more complicated than just a simple US versus Iran showdown.
So yeah, this just cranks the tension up to 11. You've got Israel on high security alert, and the whole region is basically holding its breath. Everyone's just waiting to see what Washington does next, and you can just feel the potential for this thing to explode.
Okay, Section 2, America's show of force. As all this tension is building, the US decides it's time to make its presence felt. And we're not talking about strongly worded letters here. We're talking about a very public, very intimidating display of military power.
And the source gets specific. We're seeing heavy C-17 transport planes moving from Germany to the Middle East. You know, these are the workhorses, the planes that bring in all the equipment you need to set up a major operation. Then you've got KC-135 refueling tankers flying patterns over the Persian Gulf. Think of them as flying gas stations for fighter jets. And on top of all that, the president's being briefed on a list of targets inside Iran. These aren't just random movements. These are the exact chess pieces you put in place when you're gearing up for a major air campaign.
And if that wasn't enough to get your attention, there's this. The Doomsday plane. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a mobile airborne command center, basically the president's office in the sky during a nuclear war. And according to the analysis, this thing was spotted out in the open, which apparently hadn't happened in something like 50 years. I mean, wow. Regardless of the official story, just seeing that plane sends a very serious message.
So you might be wondering, how does Iran even begin to respond to all this? They can't go toe-to-toe with the US military, right? So they don't. The analysis shows they pivot to what's called an asymmetric response. Basically, they don't hit America head-on. They hit where it'll hurt the most, at its allies and its weak spots.
And Tehran's official line is, well, it's not subtle. The Speaker of the Iranian parliament comes right out and says it. Any American attack will mean bombs start falling on Israel and on American bases all over the region. No beating around the bush. It's a direct, you hit us, we hit them threat.
But it's not just about military threats. They also go for a psychological punch. Check this out. Thousands of Israelis get this anonymous text message. "We are coming. Look to the sky at midnight." That's not aimed at the army. That's aimed squarely at civilians, designed to cause maximum fear and chaos.
And it gets even scarier. This wasn't just a random spam text. The hackers had names, ID numbers, home addresses. Imagine getting a message with all your personal info, ending with, "This is your last warning. Save yourself and your family." That's a whole other level of warfare. It shows a massive intelligence failure on Israel's part and creates this feeling that nowhere is safe.
Okay, so this isn't just happening in a bubble, right? Let's zoom out a bit. Because as you can imagine, other huge players like Russia and China are watching all of this unfold. And they're not just going to sit on the sidelines.
So the analysis frames this as a big multi-front chess move by President Trump. The idea seems to be antagonize Russia by seizing some ships and distract China by making comments about Taiwan. But, and this is a big but, it seems to have backfired. Instead of keeping them busy, it actually pushed Russia and China closer together, and they responded by directly helping Iran, selling them advanced Su-35 fighter jets and sophisticated radar systems. So the plan to isolate Iran, it did the exact opposite.
All right, now we get to what the analysis says is the real reason for all this. And it might not be what you think. The argument here is that this whole international crisis, it's not really about Iran's nuclear program or regional stability. It's about domestic politics. It's about leaders trying to stay in power.
And the source draws this really stark comparison between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. On one hand, you have Trump facing a possible recession, unrest, and really critical midterm elections. A loss there would be devastating for his presidency. On the other hand, you have Netanyahu, who's deeply unpopular at home, facing massive protests. The analysis argues that for both of them, a foreign conflict is a convenient distraction, a way to rally support and change the narrative when things are looking bad.
And you really can't overstate how high the stakes were. For the president, if his party loses its majority in the midterms, it's game over for his agenda. The opposition would control everything: investigations, legislation, the works. So this isn't just a foreign policy headache, it's an existential political threat.
So this immense pressure cooker of domestic politics leads, according to the source, to a final, absolutely critical debate inside the White House. It comes down to two possible paths to get that political win they so desperately need.
And here's where the story takes a turn that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. The question on the table wasn't just whether to act, but where. And the two options were strike Iran or invade Greenland. Yes, you heard that right. Invade Greenland.
Now, as you can imagine, the military leadership was reportedly horrified by the Greenland idea. I mean, invading territory that belongs to Denmark, a NATO ally, that's not just illegal, it's the kind of thing that could literally blow up the entire NATO alliance. So they pushed back hard, and they proposed an alternative they saw as, well, easier.
And this is where you see the cold, hard logic laid out. The analysis argues that a strike on Iran was seen as the easier option. Why? Well, first, the political cover was already there. You could sell it to Congress by talking about their nuclear program or internal protests. Second, Iran was seen as a softer target because of its own economic problems. Third, its biggest allies, Russia and China, were being intentionally distracted. And most importantly, it offered a clear, telegenic military victory right before the November elections.
And that brings us to the final, really chilling question that this whole analysis poses. What happens when the survival of a political career becomes the main reason for starting a global conflict? It completely reframes the whole story, doesn't it? It's no longer just about geopolitics. It's about what desperate people in power might be willing to do to hold on to it.